Hey y'all, my name is Rawley Cadenhead, and today I would like to talk to you about the use of instant replay in sports. Did you know that an umpire calling balls and strikes in the game of baseball is only correct 86% of the time? When that ball is thrown on the edges of the strike zone, exactly where a pitcher would be aiming, it drops below 50%. This is a problem in just sports in general. There are plenty of missed calls in all sorts of sports, and there's ways that this can be fixed. So what's the problem? Referees and umpires and officials, they're merely human, which means they are flawed. There's a couple things that can be used to try and minimize this, and there's some things that we can do to correct this. The first thing that we can do is have better training for officials. The second thing that we can do is have more experienced officials that call these games. The last thing and the most effective thing that we can do is implement more instant replay in sports. Through my years of playing college sports and high school sports, I have learned that the use of instant replay is effective, meaningful, and is the most fair and least controversial way to have a game be called. Today in this speech, I want to talk to y'all a little bit about some of the most egregious sports calls that have been made that have really changed the course of history, changed individuals' lives, and I would like to also talk about some of the things that we could do to change that, how we could have made things a little bit better in the moment, and the long-term things that we can do as fans to help improve the sports that we love. So first, in the 2019 NFC Championship game, a game played between the New Orleans Saints and the Los Angeles Rams, the game was tied 20-20 in the fourth quarter with just 1 minute and 49 seconds left on the clock. Drew Brees and the Saints had been driving the length of the field, and they were near the end zone. It was 3rd down and 10. Drew Brees throws a pass out to the right side of the field with Mercedes Lewis, and before Mercedes Lewis even has the opportunity to catch the ball, the Rams cornerback completely obliterated him, as you can see in this photo. It was a blatant pass interference call. Only problem was the referee did not throw the flag, and the Saints had to settle for a field goal. So what do we know about the outcome of that play? The Rams were able to drive the field and score a field goal before the end of the fourth quarter. That sent the game into overtime. In overtime, the Rams won the game on a field goal. The problem is that the missed pass interference may have affected the outcome of the game. There's no determined, sure way to do it, but with that little time left in the fourth quarter, if the Saints had been given a first down, they would have been down near the 5 or 6 yard line. They could have easily drained the clock and kicked a field goal at the end of regulation. They might have scored a touchdown, which would have made the Rams have to score a touchdown. There's a lot of things that could have happened that would have changed the outcome of that game. And so the fact that the referee did not throw a flag in that situation was just terrible. The second instance that I would like to talk about is in a game between the Detroit Tigers and the Oakland Athletics in 2010. The Tigers pitcher Armando Galarraga got 26 outs without giving up a single hit. He was on his way to a perfect game. With 1 out left in the 9th inning, he threw a pitch. The batter hit the ball softly to the first base side. Galarraga covered first base, what his job was to do. The first baseman threw him the ball. He tagged first base before the runner got there, and it should have been called an out. The only problem was the umpire that was standing at first base called the runner safe, taking away his perfect game. So what was the consequence of that? The play on the field is non-reviewable, which is incredibly unfortunate. The Tigers did end up winning the game, but Armando Galarraga's perfect game was blown by a missed call. This was a huge problem. A perfect game is legendary in the sport of baseball. It rarely happens. It's career-changing, life-changing for the pitcher that it does happen to. And it's a shame that this call was missed. So how do we prevent missed calls in sports? Well, the best and most effective way to do it is through the use of instant replay. Instant replay could have easily been used to determine the call of pass interference in that Saints and Rams game, which could have changed the outcome of that game. It also could have been used to correct the call at first base for Armando Galarraga's infamous imperfect game. Instant replay is not a new invention. In fact, it has been used in all sorts of sports: tennis, football, baseball, basketball, soccer, and almost every professional sport. They have some form of instant replay already implemented. The problem is that not all of these calls are reviewable in every instance. And so allowing more reviews, more challenges, more instant replays in sports would make the games much more fair and much less controversial. So specifically speaking of the MLB, how do we improve that? Well, the number one way and the easiest way to improve the strike zone, as I was talking about earlier in the presentation, is to implement the strike zone computerized instant replay call. What this is that if you're watching an MLB game on TV, you can easily see this box that makes out the strike zone. This is mostly used for fans, so we can see the strike zone. But it also tracks where the ball is thrown and if the ball is thrown within the strike zone or outside of the strike zone. This is a 97% accurate way of determining balls and strikes. And so this is significantly better than the odds of having a ball or a strike called with just using the home plate umpire. That's just the balls and strikes. As far as the in the field of play plays that are missed, allowing more instant replays is the best way to have these games being called. Armando Galarraga got his perfect game taken away because the call was not reviewable. So implementing rules that would allow for instant replay in close games and close situations is the most effective way to have these games being called. The best thing about instant replay, even outside of some of the things I've been talking about in the MLB right now, is that once that technology is made and it's honed and it has really taken effect, this is something that can be implemented in Major League Baseball and professional softball, but also it can even go down a level to collegiate sports and collegiate baseball and collegiate softball. And these are things that can be used to really improve the game long term. What could have been done to improve the game in the NFL? Well, the NFL is actually really good about implementing rule changes. After the no call for the Saints and the Rams, the NFL in the offseason did implement a rule that allowed instant video replay for pass interference calls. The only problem is that the NFL is incredibly reactive and very rarely proactive. They're quick to make the change, but they have to have a big mistake in order for them to make the change in the first place. So what the NFL could be doing is to make replay more available to the teams. This is the number one thing that they can do, is to be proactive and not so reactive. They're really good at instituting the rule changes, especially when it came to targeting and pass interference. But there's a lot of calls that are still missed that should be reviewable and that just aren't right now because they haven't had that big mistake yet that really forced them to make a rule change. So the NFL being more proactive would be really great. So what can we do as fans? Well, the number one thing that we can do is understand that instant video replay is the way of the future, and it's the best thing for sports as a whole. It's the least controversial way to have a game be called. It's the most fair way to have the game called, and it lends the best results. Whenever we have these missed calls, it really, really affects not just fans and cities, but it affects the teams and the outcome on the field. And the game should be determined by the players playing on the field. It should not be determined by the human element of an official. So what can we do as fans in order to get some of these changes made? Well, the best thing that we can do is the best thing that we can do is to contact the leagues, contact the commissioners of those leagues, contact your favorite conference, and get in touch with those people. Tell them that instant replay is what we need to be instituting more of. It's the best way, it's the most efficient way, and it is the most fair way. At this point in history, instant replay is made a huge difference. But we have everything to gain by using it more often and nothing to lose. Thank you for your time.